Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenji, and I'm a group director with Concordia Language Villages. And on behalf of all of my colleagues, I'd like to welcome you to our informational webinar on our high school credit program. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes, but as we get oriented this evening, I would like to share with you a couple of reminders. As you can see on the screen, when you're not actively speaking, we would ask that you mute your microphone to improve the sound quality for the other participants. Also, if you're joining by computer, you may have a webcam option on your computer. You will not need your webcam this evening. Finally, this webinar is being recorded for playback later for those who are unable to join this evening. The format of this hour-long webinar today is going to be a series of the most frequently asked questions regarding our high school credit program. And several of my colleagues, Natasha, Otto, and Jacqueline, will be taking turns asking them. If you have a question that is specific to the topic at hand, you're certainly welcome to jump in and ask your question before we move to the next topic. If you have a question that is not currently being addressed, we would ask that you save that question towards the end, and we'll answer as many questions as we can before the end of the hour. Finally, if you have an individual question that is specific to your child or situation, or if your question is not addressed this evening, at the very end of the hour, I'll show a series of email addresses that you can contact those who are specific, who can address questions specific to your language of interest. All right. With that, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Charlotte.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Charlotte. I'm one of our group directors. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. Our first question for the evening is, what does credit mean when we say credit program? And how is it different from your 1- and 2-week programs? And our staff will help answer. If someone who is not yet muted could mute. We're hearing some background noise. Okay, thank you. The question again is, what does credit mean, and how is it different from your 1- and 2-week programs? And Jacqueline can answer this one for us.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if my microphone unmuted. I'm Jacqueline, and I have worked for 13 summers at Lac du Bois Hackensack, 10 of those summers in the high school credit program as a teacher or facilitator. So I love this program. And we get this question about how is it different from the 1- and 2-week curriculum or programs quite a bit, because a lot of villagers start younger with the 1- and 2-week programs and then kind of grow into the high school credit program. And so for people familiar with the language villages, we have the same, it's the same immersion experience that we can talk about a little bit later. But we also embed about 3 to 4 hours of classroom experience into the daily routine. So villagers arrive, they're evaluated on their language level, so we can actually accommodate complete beginners or language French speakers, at least at Lac du Bois Hackensack, anywhere along their language journey. So, and then we group them into small classes of about somewhere between 5 and 10 students. They're in those classes for 3 or 4 hours a day with a teacher, but also they're doing projects outside in the village, outside of their classes, and they're creating a portfolio that sort of captures everything that they're learning, not just in class, but also in the cabins and at meal times and in other activities that they're doing for fun. So it's the same fun of the 1- and 2-week program, because there are still free time and interesting activities to do outside of classes, but it's all sort of captured by this portfolio experience and this classroom experience too, that really allows villagers to work on personal goals in a more deep and profound manner, and also works on a little bit more reading and writing than our 1- and 2-week program does. So the 4-week high school program is accredited by Advanced Ed, and we reach a minimum of 180 hours of instruction. I can say at Lac du Bois Hackensack, I've been crunching numbers that reach more like 200 formal hours of instruction in the month. But that doesn't even count all of the fun playtime, conversation at table and stuff like that. So that's a little bit about how it's different. Basically, it's the classes, the portfolio, and this kind of individualized goal setting and progress that you make with your teacher.
Merci, Jacqueline. Our next question is, how is it possible to earn a whole year of high school credits in just 1 month? And to help us address that, I'm going to turn to our colleague Otto from our Waldsee, our German language village.
I have no idea if this is working now.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes. My name is Otto, and I have been at Waldsee, the German language village, for almost 10 years now, and I have been involved in the credit program for about 7. And as Jacqueline was saying about the 180 hours of required instruction, our credit kids from any of the villages then have to acquire at least 180. And like Jacqueline was mentioning about Lac du Bois, our numbers tend to be somewhere above 190. And so when we then crunch all those hours together, we send that along with information about the grades that they have received from their teachers and any other supporting information to Concordia College in Moorhead. And from there, it is the credit is essentially sent directly to the schools. Yeah, I think that is about it.
Sorry, I was muted and I'm back. Thank you, Otto. Our next question is, how much of the language do I need to speak already? And we're going to turn to Natasha for the answer to that question.
Okay.
Natasha.
And Natasha, I'm going to
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. And can you see my screen?
Not yet. Let's see. There we go. Just send control over to you, Natasha.
Perfect. So my name is Natasha. I'm the credit facilitator and assistant dean at the Russian Language Village, Lesnoye Ozera. That's my 13th year on staff. And I also am a former credit student myself. So
trying to get hooked up to it.
I'm sorry. Again, if you're not currently speaking, if you would please mute your microphone. We've got some background noise. And Natasha, we're still waiting to see your screen.
Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on. Can you see it now?
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect. So it's my 13th year at the villages, and I have kind of the whole spectrum of experience. I've been the credit facilitator, I've taught credit, I'm a credit student myself, and now I'm a parent of a villager. So I've kind of seen it all. We at the Russian village, and I'm sure this is true of the other villages, see a good deal of villagers come to us with no language whatsoever. Any given year at Russian, for example, that would be 1/3 of our village is a total novice. They've never learned any Russian, and that's just not a problem. I love this picture that's up. It's one of our staff members, Buddies, who comes to us from St. Petersburg, and Buddies speaks no English at all, and as you can see, he's having a lovely chat with 2 gentlemen just off the bus who speak no Russian. And the reason why we're able to do that is we have amazing staff who are very skilled We spend a lot of time training our staff and how to work with villagers using immersion tech methodology. And the village is a really dynamic place to learn. One of the things we spend a lot of time, not just at Ugasno Ozra, but at all the villages, is learning, teaching our staff how to use our village as our classroom. So we really try and live the language. We're surrounded by these sites, and we go around and teach how would you use that location for a certain level. So, for example, the Russian village just got a beautiful new banya this last summer. If I am going to be working with beginners, I might take the opportunity to teach them how to give directions. If I have an intermediate level kids, it might be the instructional process of lighting the fire in the banya. And if I had advanced students or students who have Russian in the home, then I would be talking more about the cultural importance of banya. We sing it. We are surrounded by it. We sing all day long, and especially true of the less commonly taught languages. We also show when we are singing. So we have the lyrics to our songs are always up so that you can look at it and you get multiple inputs. We eat authentic food, and for beginners, the lesson there is pass the bread, or I would like the milk. The intermediate level is we actually have a test. We have one of our older staff members, Valya from St. Petersburg, and you have to sit with Valya and convince Valya that you are in fact done with your meal and you don't need to eat any more food than that. And our advanced, they're spending meals talking about politics. We act it out. I think this is probably true in all the villages, but I think after a summer at the language villages, you could easily become a gesture expert, an actor, because we do. We show, we act things out at the drop of his hat. We use our bodies. It's very kinesthetic learning, using the language. And then we have class time, like Jacqueline said. Our classes are broken down into small groups where we have 4 or 5 students up to maybe 9 that are grouped by language proficiency. Our novices talk about surviving the village, and our more advanced take on more content stuff. And we have levels from everything from beginner all the way up to a very advanced proficient. Our classes are small, so we get to take kids from exactly the point they are at with their language learning and push them as far along as we can get them in one summer. And I know Russian, like some of the other villages, we also have a dedicated curriculum specifically for heritage learners who either were born in a Russian-speaking country and now live in the United States, or perhaps their parents speak Russian in the home. And that program, at least in the Russian village, focuses on improving academic use of language as well as cultural literacy. So looking at Russian politics, reading the news, reading Pushkin, and things of that nature.
That's good.
Great. Thanks, Natasha. As we change screens here, our next question is, what makes our program unique? And for that, we'll turn to Jacqueline.
Hi, Maria.
Hello, is my microphone back on?
You're back on, Jacqueline.
Oh, great. Oh, there we go. Great. So Natasha touched on so many things in what she just talked about that make Concordia Language Village's credit program unique, especially when we compare it to other summer options out there. I think just to step back a little bit and talk about our mission and the concept of the CLD Way, which is the way that we do things. We are all about language learning and culture learning, but we're also that's also positioned in a greater mission of responsible citizenship in our global community. So language learning is important, cultural diversity is very important, but all of that happens in a context of a village that embraces understandings of different issues that transcend national boundaries, empathy for other people around the world, peace, justice, sustainability, and all those things. So I guess that our mission really makes us unique because we are constantly applying the language to real-world scenarios where people have to get along. And I can say, working in international development, also in Guatemala, I can see incredible parallels between the mission and the philosophy of Concordia Language Villages and just the way that people work in the world, in other countries, and especially in international development and nonprofit work. So it's a great mission that prepares villagers or young people to work in international settings. The CLV Way, if you could scroll down a little bit, Kenji. So the CLV Way is how we are able to delve into language and culture. So we create a grand simulation where it feels like, for villagers, it feels like they're in a village, they're in a world that we've created where we need the language to accomplish everyday tasks, and we also need it to have fun and have a community. We often say, especially at Lac du Bois Hackensack, we often say that we're language and culture immersion, but we're also immersion in a community. And so everything that we do is about building friendships, building good communication, and just camp skills of living with other people and cooperating with other people. And in the credit program, you see that so much in those small classes, and when villagers are there for 4 weeks, they really build a very strong community, and they feel bonded many times for life with the friends that they make at camp. And they've shared something very important. They've overcome obstacles together, and it's a great environment to learn in, and it's very positive. Of course, everything that we're doing is in the target language. So we're doing hands-on activities, and as Natasha talked a lot about that, as we're using the language to accomplish things in everyday life. And we celebrate the cultures. In the French village, we celebrate lots of different cultures because there are, 40 or 50 cultures around the world that are countries that speak French. So we have ongoing cultural activities. Our lessons in the classes are typically thematic around different cultural themes or global issues and things like that. We pull in a lot of the advanced placement themes also into our classes. And then also every day has a cultural theme, especially at least at the French villages. Every day has a cultural theme, like Morocco, for example, would be one theme where we would eat Moroccan food and have skits and sing songs and things like that throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, we would do an activity based around Moroccan culture, like possibly reenact a Moroccan wedding or something like that. So we know that this thematic learning is a positive thing typically in schools, and that's pretty much just how we operate at the Concordia Language Villages. Things are very thematic and interdisciplinary just because that's how culture is. We also are immersed in the forest and the environment with us, and so we practice living sustainably in nature, and that is something that villagers hopefully take away from their experience and apply in their lives outside of the language village, and that's kind of part of the responsible global citizenship, is the idea of being good stewards of the environment around us and having a good relationship with nature. So that's all in all the CLD Way. If you're not familiar with language villages, I recommend delving into this description a little bit more. You can go to the website and just type in the search bar CLD Way if you want to read more on that.
Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. Our next question is, what is a day like in a residential camp in the village? And we're going to go back to Otto for the answer to that question.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Spanish credit day, and I can compare that a little bit to the German schedule as well. If you look through it, we start the whole day is pretty full, from early morning, including some sort of getting together at the beginning of the day, saying hello to everyone, greeting, all the way till pretty late into the evening, with an evening program. So the meals are generally set up similar to what it would be in the culture. So, for example, in the Spanish camp, you have a later lunch, and then a siesta, a rest time, shortly thereafter. In other camps, it'll be a little bit earlier or later than what the high schoolers might be used to. And if you look down here, you see a couple of different classes. So Class A, Class B, and Class C, and so on. And these, depending on the specific village, might be more elective, or might be set up by a certain teacher. For example, a specific class that your high schooler might be assigned to. And this is not just strict grammar like what you might be expecting in a normal high school. But yet, as we've been talking about already, bringing in the context of culture and the environment in which we're actually living and working. And you can see several other things like the telenovela and various recreational activities and so on that are then relevant culturally also to that culture. And many of these things actually count as part of their 180 hours. So obviously things like rest time and the time that they're actually sleeping do not, but many of these others do, because we're actually bringing in the culture and the language into every element of the day. Yeah, and it's just like in the German village. And all the others, there's a lot of singing and dancing, and this also brings it all right on in. So thank you.
Danke, Otto. The next question is, where are the camps? Are all the programs in Minnesota? And how do I get there? And so that will turn to Natasha.
Okay. So with the exception of our abroad programs, our villages are all in northern Minnesota. I think Kenji is going to put a map up of our locations. Yeah, so they're in Bemidji, Callaway, Dent,
Get off
that
of
kind
me.
that kind of area. And there's a lot of ways to get there. You can drive and perhaps spend a night or two in Bemidji. It's a cool little town. You can see Paul and Babe. You can go visit the source waters of the Mississippi River, which is very cool. If you're not interested in driving, or that's prohibitive. You can always fly in. You can fly into Bemidji or Fargo, depending on your location. And there's staff that will pick you up for a fee and bring you back to the village that you're going to. And then there's also some charter buses from Minneapolis, Twin Cities, that go to the villages, as well as another charter bus or two that go from Madison, Wisconsin and Tomah, Wisconsin up. So there's a bunch of different ways. The buses are staffed with CLV members. They are very responsible. They look after your children very well. And I'm trying to think if that's it. Oh, and on the website there is a link about transportation. The transportation people are lovely and will be very helpful and willing to help you with whatever accommodations or questions you might have about how to get from your home to the villages, because there are lots of different ways in which you can do that. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. Our next question is, how much does it cost and when are the camps? I'm going to send that to Jacqueline. There we go.
Thanks. So, yeah, so if you want to know how much, well, I could tell you how much it costs. It's $4,510 for all of our 4-week programs, and that excludes transportation and also excludes spending money. So most villagers come with about $100, maybe $50 to $100 of spending money, because we have a village store and a candy shop and opportunities to spend money at the village out of necessity, if nothing else. If, you know, a pair of sweatpants doesn't make it into the suitcase, we do have them available at the village store, things like that. So it's good to have a little spending money. Also, the second week, we go into town to do laundry. It's really hard to make one suitcase last for 4 weeks, so we take a break halfway through. We go into town, we do laundry. We might even see a movie or you know, visit a special spot in Bemidji or something like that to do a little tourism. And that's the only time we leave the village, really, is that second weekend for a little break. So you definitely want to send a little bit of laundry money along, for sure. If you want to know what sessions are available for the language that you're interested in, you can visit that languages page on our website and scroll down to the program section and find the 4-week program. There you go. Hit that page and then select the language that you're looking for and scroll down to the program section. There will be a 4-week program page that shows the sessions just like the previous page that Kenji was showing I had. So you can find the sessions there. That one.
Exactly. The next question is for Otto, and that is, how do I get the credits back to my school at
Yeah, so I did mention this a little bit earlier on in one of the questions.
I'm sorry,
So after,
I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. If you're on the line, if you would please make sure your microphone is muted. Thanks so much. Sorry, Otto.
Sure. So after we then assemble all of the documents saying how many hours all of the students have achieved and so on, we put all of these documents together and send them to Moorhead, to Concordia College, and from there it is then sent on to your schools to allow for granting credit, essentially. Now, it is up to the individual schools then to accept it. Some schools will accept it, some schools won't. and I would recommend you checking with your student's high school beforehand just to know. And yeah, I think that answers the question.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Otto. Our last question before we entertain questions from you is, where can I go for more information?
Great. Thanks, Charlotte. I'll take that question.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Kenji.
We're still getting a little bit of reverb from somebody's microphone. So again, if you could please make sure you're muted to improve the sound quality for everybody else. It sounds like it's coming on the phone. All right, let's try that. You very well may have other questions that we're not able to get to this evening. But if you do have a question that's specific to your situation, or if your question is addressed during this hour, on the screen you'll see a list of contacts by language. So for example, if I were interested in our Japanese language high school credit program, I could contact Etsuko at cldjapanese@forge.edu. So we'll leave that information on the screen for a bit, so you can copy down the information that's relevant to you. If you're not quite sure where you want to go, at the bottom of the screen, you can see our general account, cld@forge.edu. Or during regular business hours, you can call our office at 1-800-222-4750.
No, I got on mute.
Okay. At this point, we'll open things up for questions. Again, if you have questions to ask, please unmute the microphone and then mute it again when you're done. And I would invite Charlotte, Natasha, Otto, or Jacqueline to join me in answering those questions.
Kenji, I have one thing to add real quick. Do you mind?
Go ahead, absolutely.
When Otto was talking about the credit, getting credit, CLD is a accredited institution, and so whether or not the high school takes the credit, your student still gets credit so long as they pass the program. And so if the high school doesn't accept credit, I always recommend to my students that they, when they're going to apply to colleges, because the villages are well known amongst the most rigorous universities in the U.S., that you call the registrar and you have your CLD transcript sent along with the high school transcripts, because the colleges will view that as credit, even if the high school did not give you credit. Just a little addendum, that's all.
Natasha, I think that's a great point. I'd also like to add that in at Lac du Bois Hackensack, typically about a third of the villagers that attend the high school credit program don't need the credit. They're doing it because they know it's a good learning experience for them, and kind of also because of all the other reasons that we've talked about with the mission of Concordia Language Villages and the immersion in the community and nature and all those other things that go along with the language learning and culture learning. They just want to learn, and it's a great experience. And so a lot of people don't need the credit. But
You want some of this? You don't like the orange stuff?
I saw a note in the chat box. It seems that some of our phone callers, or sorry, our phone participants, also need to meet their microphone. So if you're joining us by phone, to minimize the background noise. Perfect. Thanks so much. All right. Are there any questions that we can address?
One black carrot, and I'll even get the taste.
You shouldn't have told them they have free range.
I've never. Ooh, take that mess off.
Are you still going to listen to a brother like you? You know what? You know.
Do you have any specific questions?
You like to
You
mess
should
up
unmute
my
and then ask your
take
question.
that off.
In my business, nigga. My business. She done drank up all
Good. If there aren't any questions, then, as I said, this webinar has been recorded, and we'll send that recording to you, or video link to this recording in a few
Right, popcorn.
Thanks so much to my colleagues for
Who didn't close the bag?
thanks to all of our participants for joining us. We hope to see you in Minnesota this summer for your language lesson. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.